All right, guys. Welcome back. We're going to be doing some more factoring today. And today we're going to be doing something called a factoring quadratics, and we're going to use something called the box method. I understand if this is a bit confusing the first couple times we do this. So don't be too worried about it. We're going to be going over this again and again and again until you guys understand what's going on here. So here I'm going to show you basically how things are going to be set up, and then I'm going to go through a couple of examples. The first thing that I'm just going to point out, we will have quadratic equations. This is just kind of what they will always look like. What I mean by ax squared plus bx plus c, that just means that usually you have some number x squareds plus some number x's, so that b will stand for a number, and plus or minus some number at the end. Now, the way we're going to factor this, yesterday and the day before, you were factoring things that only had a 1 in front of the x squared. And now we're going to change things up where there'll be a number in front of that. And so that does add on a couple extra steps. So the way that we're going to do this, you always start step 1. We make that table that you guys are probably getting used to by now. And on the top of that table, we're always going to put, we used to put just c, now we're going to put a times c. So now that there's going to be a term there, you just multiply those two things and you get the top. So a times c, and then you go down and you have to find two factors, two numbers that multiply together to get whatever that number is, that add up to get b. So that just means you are adding up to get that middle number, so it's still basically the exact same case. So we got to add up to get that. Now, after you're done with that, you have to take those two things and some of the stuff from the original, and we're going to make a box. So you make a box that looks like this. We take that first ax squared term, put that in the top left. We put the c term in the bottom right, and then you take those numbers, the n and the m, you put those in those two spots, and you put an x in front of them. And then we factor at the end. I'll show you what that looks like. So here's our first example. We have ax squared plus bx plus c. In this case, instead of x's, we have p's. Doesn't change a whole lot. But in this case, a is 2. I can write that down. A equals 2. B equals 3. And c equals negative 20. You can see these three things. So in this case, we're going to make that table. Remember, this is a times c. So we're doing a times c. A is 2. C is negative 20. So we got to multiply 2 times negative 20. So that's going to be negative 40. And we got to find different ways to get negative 40. So let's do, how about negative 1 times 40, negative 2 times 20, negative 3 times, no, that's not going to work. Negative 3. Negative 4 times 10. Negative 5 times 8. And we'll go through and we got to figure out which one of these. Remember, we got to figure out which one of those adds up to get 3. Well, that would be that last thing that we got to, the negative 5 times 8. So negative 5 times 8, that is, if you add those, if you multiply those, you get negative 40. If you add them, you get 3. So we're going to use those two numbers. Now, we have to make a box. This is a new step. So we're going to make a box. It's going to have 4 sections. And line in the middle, line through the middle. Not the best looking box there, but that's okay. We always put ax squared, if you remember, ax squared and c go there. So we can put ax squared on the top, so that's 2, well in this case it's p squared, because that's the variable we're using. Negative 20 goes here, and then we have to take those two numbers and we put them in these two spots. So negative 5p and 8p. So we got those two things. You got to put the variables back there too. So now we're going to do factoring based on this. We're actually going to break down those things, this part, so that we get two things. We're going to have some numbers and some variables on the top and on the side that multiply together to get the inside. So let's think about this term here, the 2p squared. What are two things that multiply together to get 2p squared? Well, in that case, we could do 2p times 1p. And so 2 times 1 is 2, p times p, p squared. Also, it's important that I place this 2p on top because we're multiplying in, it's kind of like bingo, but we're multiplying in to get this one. You want to think, does the 2p go into the 8p? Well, yes, it does, but the 2p does not go into the 5p, so I couldn't put it over here. So 2p's on top. What times 2p would be 8p? Well, 4 times 2p is 8p, because 2 times 4 is 8. So that would work. And what number do I have to put up here so that when I multiply 1p by whatever that number is, I get negative 5p? Well, that number is going to be negative 5, because 1p times negative 5 is negative 5p. And to check, does 4 times negative 5 equal negative 20? Well, yes, it does. So that's the final thing. So that means that our answer is 2p minus 5 times 1p plus 4. So in the final step, you just take those sides. I take this thing, 2p minus 5, put that there, and I take this, 1p plus 4, and I put that over there, and you combine those, and those are your two factors. So that was quite a bit of work, but that's okay. We'll move on to the next one. Get that one out of the way. So here, again, a equals 4, b equals 9, c equals 2. We make that table. So remember, a times c goes on the top, so that means 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 2 is 8, that's the top. On the sides, we got to put things that multiply together to get 8, so that's like 1 times 8, or 2 times 4. And in this example, 1 times 8 is going to work, because that, when you add them together, it gives you 9. And I got to make a box. And in this example, so we got to put the ax squared in the top, so 4x squared. Got to put the c at the bottom right, so that's 2. And in these spots, I got to put the 1x and the 8x. Got to take those sides, put those right there and there. And next, so when we do this, we have to figure out what numbers can I, what ways can I break this stuff down so that I get two sides, so that it all multiplies together and works out nice. So in this example, I could try out 2x and 2x, because 2 times 2 is 4, and x times x is x squared. And that would almost work out, except can I multiply 2x by something to get 1x? Well, no, I can't. That's not going to work out very well, because 2 times, there's not really anything that I can multiply 2 by to get 1, or at least not a whole number. So we're not going to want to do those. So another way to break down the 4x squared would be a 4x and a 1x, right? 4 times 1 is 4, x times x, x squared. That works out pretty well. And also, 4 goes into 8, so this continues to work out pretty well. So we'll have a 4x, and over here, because we're multiplying in to get the center, you'd put a 2 there. 4 times 2 is 8, and you have an x. Now here, 1x times what number is 1x? Well, that's just a 1, right? 1 times 1 is 1, you got the x there. And finally, in this bottom section, 2 times 1, is that 2? Yes, that does work out. So I have my factors. So that means this is equal to 4x plus 1 times 1x plus 2. So that is my answer right there, and I've done all the work. So if you guys have any questions, and I'm sure you probably will, this is pretty hard to do, definitely come in and ask me some questions. Come into my office hours. I'd love to see you, love to talk. And if you have anything else that you need to know about, you can always email to. So good luck with your homework, and have a nice day.